think we can probably get started as more people trickle in. Unique, over to you.
Cool. So this is an AMA with Chainalysis. They're partnered with Nibiru on both incident response and then also for address screening across bridges. And so this is just a chance to learn more about what they do and yeah, get some questions from the community as well. So I guess to start out, uh, and then also a reminder that we do have a giveaway at the end of the space for some of the listeners if people want to stick around for that. So I guess first, can Julia and Casey, can you guys introduce yourself?
For sure. Yeah, thank you all so much for having us. And yeah, we're super excited to work with you all first and foremost and support your community. It's a really, really exciting and vibrant space. And there's so many amazing things going on there. And it's exciting to sort of support that and be a part of it. So, me in particular, I focus on. I've been a developer for my whole career lifetime, but I focus specifically on the safety and protection of the users and the protocols and chains like yourself. So that's really where my focus is, and really sort of allowing the beautiful, wonderful things that you're doing to happen, and making sure that the bad actors stay out to let it thrive as much as possible. So Julia.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'll just start by giving a little overview of Chainalysis and then myself. So Chainalysis, we started as a company in 2014, primarily focusing on trying to help with Mt. Gox. And so we've long been in the investigation and incident space. And what Chainalysis does is it's a blockchain analytics company. So we take blockchain data as well as our own research, and then we normalize it and attribute it to help with investigation and compliance products. And so what I do is I'm a senior investigator here at Chainalysis. So I really focus on DeFi and Web3 hack investigations. And I've been at Chainalysis for about 2 years. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, guys. Thanks. So yeah, I guess to kind of open up with what do you guys say are like the key ways that um, Chainalysis kind of uh, helps institutions know that they're not interacting with bad actors? And then if you want, can you to give like a more specific intro on IRP? That'd be good context for the listeners.
Sure. Yeah, I'll kind of start that, and then we can follow up on the incident response aspect. So generally, one of the things that we've noticed, and as Julia said, we've been here gathering data and really trying to keep things safe since 2014. And so along that path, what we've noticed is people who hurt once also often hurt again, right? And so in that mode, what we're able to do is we look at the provenance of funds, right, in the ideal sense. So people coming to be in your ecosystem, um, the people you want are the good, sort of wholesome, people doing their things for the right reasons, and not there to hurt others. And so what we're able to do in the address screening side of things is really just say, hey, what is the sort of prior history of this particular sort of set of funds? There's nothing we take in terms of like who that person is, but it's really more like the behaviors and actions and activities that have been a part of their on-chain behavior before. So that what that does is it allows us, I can share that with new, can make consensus driven decisions about who you all want to include or not include in your ecosystem. So we try to provide all the information we can that's in a comprehensive set, and then you all can decide sort of what makes sense for you all to include in your system. And typically It's pretty open. But again, it's your sort of setup in most organizations and protocols will set it up so that the really risky behavior, the child sex abuse materials, the terrorism, things like that are just not part of what your community embraces. And so those things are usually just excluded. So they don't really get into the system. And then the incident response portion of what we do. I'll let Julia talk more about that, but that's really sort of making sure we both help prevent as well as respond in all applicable cases.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. So the IRP, or the Incident Response Plan, has four main components to it, which is prevent, prepare, respond, and recover. So on the prevent side, we're working with you all on a number of different ways that we can make sure that an exploit never even occurs. So that is going to be setting up with monitoring the Nibiru contracts. So we are partnered with Hypernative, and we use their machine learning tools to help watch for the indications of an exploit, and making sure that if we see the preparation of an exploit happening, that we can stop it in its tracks before it has a chance to really fully take effect. We're also always working on having that having awareness of what exploits are existing in the space, and making sure that the team is aware of what those exploits are and how they're evolving over time. And then also just having more of that operational security in place. On the preparedness side, we're working on making sure that if there is any exploit, that everyone is ready to engage. And that's really important because timing is really important to make sure that you can stop an exploit from getting to its full effect. So stopping any contracts that are possibly stopped and starting to trace funds as quickly as possible, which is where we get into the respond aspect. So that is really what Chainalysis and our team has historically done and is known for, which is tracing funds on chain and using our partnerships in the private and public sector to try to know where these funds go and evoke freezes of these funds. And then that final part is the recovery part, where we can work with legal counsel or a law enforcement entity to make sure that all of the evidence is sound and that the funds that have been possible to recover can get back to the protocol. So that's really what we're trying to do is overall is to make sure that the team is as prepared as possible to stop an exploit, but then if one does occur, have the best response that we can have.
Got it. So you guys really act as partners, almost as an effective like a first responder to like the hack and assisting the team. So how do you guys, I guess, you talked about how to identify, but how do you assess like the severity of um, a security problem when you find it on chain?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're really looking at that from two different perspectives. So we have the off-chain side and the on-chain side. So on the off-chain side, we want to take a look at um, exactly what has been compromised, and how can you respond to that. So is this something where you can just shut off a contract and mitigate it, or is this something that's far reaching, that might take longer to actually address? It's also looking at how many other protocols are affected by a single exploit, because as we know, a lot of the DeFi ecosystem is built on top of each other and interconnected, and that can just mean that the effects are a lot more far-reaching than just a single protocol on its own. And on the on-chain side, we're really focusing on identifying which addresses were involved in the exploit, and then getting a sense of what specific tokens were taken as part of that. And one thing that we have noticed from working on past engagements is that there actually can be more than one actor that's part of an exploit at the same time. So that could be a copycat exploiter who realizes that they have a chance to jump in. That could be MEV bots that are just constantly sweeping, looking for opportunities and might front run a exploiter. So we want to make sure that we're also taking that into account and getting the full scope of what has happened on chain so that we can do as much as we can in terms of recovery.
Got it. And could we walk through, I guess, one or two examples of like an actual incident or the incident response process, or like maybe one that occurred in the past that like went pretty well, or something like that, just to get a better look at it in more detail.
Yeah, definitely. I have two different examples that I'll share that I think show different parts of the process, and just what we're able to do in this partnership to try to help address an incident. And I'm just going to anonymize the cases so that we can protect the victims there. But the first one that I want to talk about is a liquidity pool exploit. So this was a situation where a specific liquidity pool from a protocol was compromised, and the first action that we took was working with the protocol on their communication to victims and their immediate emergency response. So, what they decided to do was alert their community on Twitter that something had occurred. They suspended the liquidity pool that actually had become vulnerable. And then they assessed, just like I was talking about, how they could patch that vulnerability, and just take that analysis of how many victims had been affected, and how much had been actually taken from the liquidity pool on chain. That was more of what we were doing to make sure that we understood the full scope of the exploit, and had mitigated it as much as possible. Then we came and further did that on-chain assessment and realized that an MEV bot had come in and front-run the attacker and taken the majority of the funds that were vulnerable. So what we actually did there is we helped with the negotiation process with that MEV bot, along with the protocol, giving guidance on what we've seen work in the past, and ultimately we were able to help to have that MEV bot return the funds that were stolen. So that was one type of successful intervention that we've had. Another that I want to discuss is a social engineering attack, and that's something that we see happen more often than I think is talked about, where it's not actually a contract that is vulnerable and is going to cause an exploit, but it's actually the human element of this decentralized ecosystem that we've all created that can lead to an attack. So in this example, this protocol thought that they were getting an investment opportunity, and it turned out to not be true, and they had funds taken from those scammers. So again, the first thing here was to assess the situation and have that emergency response plan come into play, where the vulnerable smart contracts were halted, and this protocol actually had the ability to do some blocklisting, so they implemented that to try to stop the further movement of funds. And then we came in and traced the remaining funds that had actually been taken because of that exploit. We traced the funds from the blockchain where this protocol existed, which has lower liquidity, to Ethereum. And we often see that funds will move towards a blockchain that either has mixing capabilities or just has more liquidity and more opportunities for a cash out. And the funds didn't move for a few days, so we put monitoring on. We do 24/7 monitoring of fund movements, and we have a global team, so that someone's always awake and able to make sure that they're watching for any fund movements. And when we did see the funds move, we saw that some of the ETH was swapped to a stable coin, a centralized stable coin, and some was sent to a gambling service. And so we were able to harness our partnerships and contact the stablecoin provider and the gambling service to implement a freeze, and they were able to freeze some of those funds before they were further moved, and also blacklist the account so that that stablecoin couldn't move any further. And so that was a really great result where we were able to get some funds back to the protocol there.
And what would you say the main challenges are, more broadly, in recovering stolen funds, or just the response plan in general? And how do you kind of overcome them?
Yeah, first off, time is definitely our enemy in these situations, because the more time that that occurs after an exploit, the more that funds could be moving. They could be sent to somewhere where they could be moved off chain. They could be sent to some kind of mixer where that just adds a further complication. And so we're always trying to work in real time and as close to the point of the exploit as possible, because we found that the less time there is to actually launder the funds, the better chance that we see of recovery. And so that's really where we're harnessing having that 24/7 global team that can always be checking the funds and jumping in as soon as possible. And also where we're really relying on our partnerships that we've tried to build out, so that if we see any kind of service that has the ability to freeze funds, that we can work with them and try to actually stop those funds from moving any further. The other thing that I'd say is a challenge is that the response to some kind of incident can be siloed, and it's definitely gotten better over time. I think like maybe 4 years ago, even if you had an exploit, you would see that law enforcement was working by themselves. The services were maybe not going to talk to you. The investigators were working by themselves, and anyone who does more like traditional Web 2 or just cybersecurity kind of analysis was working by themselves. And that just meant that there was a lot less success, because you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle working together to try to actually get to a good result, which normally is going to be recovery and potentially, depending on the case, having some kind of indicator of who actually did that exploit, and maybe having some kind of law enforcement action. And so we've seen that that's really evolved over time, and that's something that we're always trying to improve upon, which is having that collaboration, making sure that the experts in each of their fields is able to share information to the extent that they can, and make sure that we just have the best partnerships in place, because that is really a key to success. And Casey, I don't know if you have any other points you want to add.
Yeah, no, all those are spot on. And I think just adding to that, one of the difficulties, and this is persistent still, is just the speed at which law enforcement works is not at like blockchain speed, right? It's a little bit more traditional, not because they don't want to, but they're still catching up on everything, trying to figure things out. And so when these transactions happen and they can settle in a matter of 20 minutes or so, they don't move that fast. So what we do is we move that fast, like Julia said, with our direct connections with the exchanges and relationships. But what we do is we help the victims really by taking all of that blockchain information, and with our experience and history in doing, forensics and cybersecurity before this, we package it up into what we call an intelligence report. So what that does is essentially it's a script from the time of the exploit, the place where it happened, all the way to the place where they're trying to exit. It really gives a complete set of evidence that is immutable, right? That is very, very data driven, so that the law enforcement, they don't have to go through the investigation. They can verify it and then submit it for final recovery. So that had been kind of a hurdle of waiting on response times and sort of different law enforcement groups around the world to sort of work at that speed and efficiency. And so another side note to that is, whenever there is a situation, we work with the victims to make sure we help them choose the right jurisdiction that will best support the recovery case. And because, like I said, some jurisdictions are either more supportive, some are faster, some are more capable, some are not. And so that's another important decision that we help make sure that we choose the right jurisdiction of those that are possible in each situation. So that's another really important fact that goes beyond just the tracing, is to make sure we can complete the cycle and help the victims to the full extent.
And for these partnerships you mentioned that kind of helped in terms of the time or in the incident response, was that more on um, working with teams that like index data on the on-chain side, or do you guys also partner with law enforcement agencies too?
So we have relationships with law enforcement, right? Because they, the good thing is that we act independently, right? So we're decentralized in that fashion, right? So we operate independently. Um, the way that it works is just that when we get into the final phase, which is the recovery phase, law enforcement are really the ones who have to get that final and permanent freeze from the central exchanges and so on. So they're a part of the process. So what we do is, so partner maybe isn't necessarily the right word in that context, but what we do is we work with them, we help empower them. They use a lot of the same tools, so it's really easy for them to see the work that we've done and to verify it, and then kind of complete the process that way. We do have other partnerships that we have on the preventative side. So one of those being Hypernative, which is what Julia was mentioning before, where they have taken all the exploits, all the contracts that have been deployed on chain, and put that into their machine learning model to sort of discover those behaviors and attributes and signatures and so on. So that's kind of where we do partner in that sense with other best of class providers. And we manage that service so that it doesn't have to be done, but we do pick up other partnerships along the way in addition.
Understood. And so what would you kind of say, what would you say distinguishes Chainalysis in particular from similar service, like similar service providers in the market?
Yeah, I'll touch base on that one. I think one of the unique things that, and why we did this, Julia had mentioned we started on the recovery side, right? The response and recovery side. What we found though is that there is a significant advantage and benefit to acting faster, right? So we kind of went from after the incident happened and then sort of forward in time or back in time, I suppose, all the way to the prevention side. So there's a whole spectrum. So after an audit happens, then where's the security, right? So what we've done is you've taken from that point, which is where we start to implement the monitoring alerts, and then all the way through the recovery side. And that's where we really put the whole package together. So I think that's a really unique aspect for us where we have our sort of specialty been earned over many years on the response side, and humbly again, I get to work with folks like Julia and other members of the team who I'd say are the best in the world. Honestly, I'm humbled to say that. But then we also pull everything together, and so there are other point solutions, but we kind of bring it together. And I like using analogies, so it's like we bring together the whole chocolate chip cookie, the best in the world, instead of just different ingredients along the way. But the reason we do that is to make sure that for the users, as well as as Nibiru in this case, it's as easy as possible. So there's no heavy lifting. We're just highly operational and efficient to be supportive as soon as possible.
And I think just to add to that, we have become such a trusted partner in the space because we have really tried to provide the best services for some of the most complicated and largest incidents that have happened in the space. A couple cases that we've worked on that have been announced is that we've done the Ronin Bridge, the Axie Infinity hack. This year, we partnered with Atomic Wallet to help with their exploit. We've also worked with Badger DAO for their incident. So I think we've just proven to the space, to the greater community, that we know how to approach these kind of incidents and who to call, and make sure that we can get the best results that we can, so that there's just a trust there that I think we've worked hard to create.
Yeah, and so one more thing on that too, just adding to what you had said before, um, because the space changes so quickly, one of the other aspects is we don't just provide it in a one-time basis. We really partner with protocols, right? In that sense that we really sort of are an extended part of the team, right? So we were an extended part of the team, and what we do is we curate content as well, so that all of the events that are happening, all the security related issues, attack related issues, we bring all those together to make sure that Nibiru and is up to speed, right, on what the attack vectors are, how they might be able to respond, how they should modify people processes. Is there anything that you would consider from a technological level or not? So those are the things where there's so much information constantly happening that we also have a large curation function to make sure that we provide the right content for the people we work with as well.
I see, I see. And so I guess with things changing so rapidly in the space, I mean, you guys are working on, um, addressing one of the biggest challenges, I think, in adoption of cryptocurrencies for like businesses and like institutions in particular. Um, so how, what do you kind of, I guess maybe this is more on the internal side, like how does your team kind of keep up or adapt with the changing space?
Yeah. So a couple things I would just say is what's really important for us is that we are on the playing field with everybody else, right? So I think there is a intimate knowledge that you get from being part of the game, right? Like in that sense where really having a deep relationship with the protocols, with the dApps, like all the different elements of this space, like we really truly get our hands dirty, right? I think that's really important to understand, get the beat on the street, see what's going on as part of that. In addition to that, we have active investigation cases. But then when our round the clock investigators are not on cases, they're actually doing research for some really sophisticated things. So some of them are related to exploit sort of vectors, attack vectors. The other kind of focus area I'd say is the bad actors, understanding who they are, who are the predominant ones, why are they attacking, where are they going, what might be next. So we're really kind of working from a kind of both a on the ground perspective, but then also a research perspective on the sort of technical side of things as well as the behavioral as well.
And what would you say are some of the future developments or enhancements here that are up and coming with either incident response or just other features of Chainalysis that you're excited about?
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the things that as I was referring to just now, because we're sort of on the playing field with all our customers, that we're really able to adapt really pretty quickly. So one example of that, and it's sort of stepping back, but that'll kind of give an answer going forward. Earlier this year, we had the emergency response plan of how to perform all these things. What we saw is an emerging trend of specific people being targeted, like Julia was saying. So, as part of the adaptation, we actually have part of a program now, which is like Web3 specific operational security guidelines, right? So, that's something we added in because we saw an emerging threat vector continue to sort of grow in that sense. And so that's one example of how we just have to be dynamic depending upon how these different elements work. So that's one example. What I'd say is that on the evolution side, forward, working to um, push further forward in the response and prediction side of things. So all the monitoring alerts we do, help making sure that we get those better, faster, and even ahead of time, so you can discover things that haven't even necessarily happened yet. So that's part of where we're always exploring. There's a lot of new technologies that we're looking at in terms of like AI to speed up discovery processes and things that we can do. In the future, who knows, in terms of like, kind of the balance between, blockchain and AI and provenance and things like that in terms of, legitimate or sort of fake content and perhaps that, is assets. So there's a lot emerging in that space that we're keeping an eye on as tokenization and leverage and those type of things are kind of coming into the fray. In terms of those aspects, but I think those are the main categories we're looking at as more of a predictive model. There are some things that we can do as well to help extend the benefits out to the individual users. So, in the same way that we help the protocols be more protected, safer, we're also looking at ways to extend that to individual users so that I would feel comfortable with my mom and dad, right? Like they're very novice, they really don't know anything. How do we extend the safety and comfort to really help them feel comfortable? Not just feeling that comfort, but actually being safer as they traverse in this new ecosystem as well. So those I'd say in the next 12 months are areas that we really want to help the commercial and retail adoption for people feeling safe and sort of being a part of this expansion.
All right, awesome. Like I went through a lot of the questions I had in some pre-prepared. If we want to have anybody ask ones live from the audience, can do so by stepping up onto the stage pretty soon through like requesting as a speaker or drop it in the chat. And then I guess if we should we go through the giveaway part, Jesse? As well. I don't know if you're still here. But yeah, so I'll leave a little bit of time for people to add questions if they want us to answer a few live for Chainalysis or on the Nibiru side.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for joining us today. We always love to give back to the community. So okay, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, got you. So I'll go ahead and pick 5 lucky winners for a small reward. The first one be take 5, and then we have Whiteside, Evangeny, Celia, and Sergi. So I'll be reaching out to you guys via DM or DM us back, and I'll take it from there.
Yeah, while we're waiting too, if there are any other questions, one of the things that we always want to make sure is that if there are other people, one of the things that there's always a um, kind of way that we can sort of like at a technological level validate things. But if there is a person or especially those who are newer getting into this space, if things continue on this sort of path forward, um, what we would just suggest there are some great sort of tools for in browser protection just to kind of verify. But what we see a lot is exploits that are happening on just a human to human level, trying to sort of socially engineer and manipulate. So what I'd certainly suggest is anybody who's new, they have sort of like a verification partner, right? So any opportunities, airdrops, whatever they happen to be, really just making sure that there's somebody that they can trust, who's impartial, who can sort of make sure that they're sort of looking at the opportunity in the right way, because there's that will prevent a lot of people from jumping in too quickly without thinking, and getting hurt as well. So that's just one general consumer level suggestion that's not technologically related, but just a process of finding somebody who you trust, and vice versa, to kind of verify your transactions and things you want to do.
Awesome. So I guess um, where can people or where should people go if they want to hear more on, learn more about Chainalysis or keep up with what you guys have going on?
Yeah, of course. I think also Andre has requested a question as well. But while that goes on, so they could just go to our website, which is chainalysis.com. They could certainly reach out to us on Twitter, and kind of get more information and links as well. To do that, and what I'd certainly suggest is anybody who is looking to, even if they're, let's say if they're a developer, they are looking to create something, if they're looking to deploy, even if they're not mainnet yet, there's a lot of really good resources that we have, both from a kind of safety perspective as well as a incident response area that we can really try and provide help along the process. So I guess my suggestion is go to those links through Twitter or directly, and then we can really just provide you with some things to really sort of help you along the way, no matter how big or small you are. We're definitely here to help, and we have some free tools as well that you can sign up for, and we can help assist you there.
There are also some great blog posts on some of the work that we've done on the Chainalysis website, as well as some webinars that you can check out if you are curious about how we take a look at investigations and what the tracing might look like. Definitely take a look there.
All right. Did we still have that question from the audience you were talking about?
It seems like he left. looks like.
Okay.
So yeah, it doesn't seem like he's there anymore.
Yeah, so I guess we can wrap it up here. Um, thank you guys for joining today, and you know, going through the questions, and also for the audience for listening.
Yeah, our
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Yeah, thank you all so much, and you're on exciting work, and happy to here to support you and all the people here. And any questions you have, just let us know.
All right, take care, guys.